Yes, here we go. And a very good morning to you, my dear friends, and welcome to today's edition of Sundays. Sundays, yeah, right. No, it's Gudday Grenada. The kid's a little bit confused this morning, but bear with him. Yes, it's a Friday morning, end of another week, and start of a brand new week here on the Spice Hour. Interesting program as usual. I expect that we are going to have, not in the flesh, but electronically, we're going to have some company this morning from one of our regulars. But before we get to that, let's take a look at a couple other things that we're going to be sharing with you this morning. I received an opinion piece yesterday, I think it was, from our good buddy, Mr. Ray Roberts. Ray, to say the least, I think Ray is a little bit peeved. A little bit peeved. Just a little bit peeved. And he is asking the question, how stupid are we as a people? That's your tip-off. That's your little heads-up there. You're going to find out what that's all about because he's making some valid points in our quest for good governance. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with on this program every day. And I'm going to share his piece with you in just a wee bit. Then, of course, we do have the national report from the GIS. Now, it being a Friday morning, yeah, it's going to be with us. Mr. Brian Pitt's going to be checking in with us, and of course, we're looking forward to that. Yeah, we're going to be talking with Brian in just a wee bit. But first, let us get down to brass tacks. Hey, it's 2 minutes after the hour. Oh, hello there, Peter. I see Peter is saying good morning from Brooklyn this morning. He's in familiar territory this morning, Brooklyn. Ray is asking the question, how stupid are we as a people? Now, here's the reason why he's asking this question. And I quote, this article was influenced by my attendance at the funeral service of former national athlete, distance runner, the late Joseph Joe Latouche, which was held at the St. George's Anglican Church. As part of the tributes, one of his relatives gave an insight of the agony the family experienced watching their loved one lying on a bed helplessly, and the inability of our general hospital to provide the necessary care. The female presenter, who seemed to have a medical background, was at great pain highlighting the misery of our premier health institution in looking after Joe, who was severely injured following an accident near Wall Street back on January 19th. According to her, he suffered a multiplicity of injuries: fractured neck, broken ribs, damaged spine, and much more. Her vivid narration of the late Joseph Latouche's 40-plus days in hospital was chilling and frightening, noting the lack of basic equipment and care. And according to her, there was absolutely no way he could have survived. The capacity-filled church listened attentively, and just about everyone seemed to share her pain. The reaction was quite obvious. Grenada's health system is all but collapsed. Unfortunately, the parliamentary representative for Southeast St. George, Gregory Bowen, arrived at the church after her hard-hitting tribute. And I again ask myself the question, how stupid are we as a people to want our government to light a cricket stadium that cannot pay for itself, rather than invest the $10 million that it will cost to light the facility in technology and equipment for the hospital. I am passionate about sport. However, lighting our cricket stadium cannot be a priority. The health of the nation must come a distant first. West Indies cricket at this time is not marketable. The quality of Grenadian and Caribbean cricketers is below par. The England versus West Indies one-day international at our stadium attracted a crowd of just over 7,000 in a facility which holds 16,000. Prime Minister Mitchell and his government will be highly irresponsible to take $10 million to light a cricket stadium while poor people are shortchanged and the workers have little or no equipment to deliver quality service. There are some loudmouths who continue to champion the lighting of the stadium, noting that St. Lucia, St. Kitts, and Antigua are all enjoying cricket played under the lights, and therefore Grenada must have the same. That must come after Grenada significantly improves our healthcare system and provides better working conditions for the staff. In conclusion, we ought to take note and be in solidarity with the plight of the many families who are hurting and blaming the state of our health care for the untimely deaths of their loved ones. The vast majority of Grenadians have absolutely no choice but to depend on the health clinics and hospitals in our country for their care in times of illness. Just a handful, such as Prime Minister Mitchell and his ministers, can afford to go abroad and pay for their health care of choice. Staging the Grenada Invitational and the other major games our government loves to invest in gives a tremendous image to our country. However, let us pray that none of the highly paid international athletes suffer an injury and Grenada cannot provide the basic care. The consequences will be huge. Pilgrims, that was penned by Mr. Ray Roberts, sent to me last night. And by the way, it's also up on the GRENADABROADCAST.com website. You can check it out. Now, let's see here. Turn to the right and take a look at what's going on social media. We already said good morning to Pedro, and John says, it looks like the IT gremlins are back, George. Maybe at your end, John, but everything's working hunky-dory here. So far, so good. Sharon is saying, good morning, Gigi and family. Sharon, cheer up, my dear. Cheer up, cheer up, cheer up, cheer up. Kipling is saying, good morning, all, and sending God's blessings. Good to hear from you, Kippy. Thanks for being there. Donna Joseph is saying good morning to all the viewers. And Margaret says, good morning, all. I'm going to stay quiet on that health hospital issue because I'm afraid of what I'll say if I get started. But to that person, I feel your pain, having gone through similar experiences at the hospital. Yet, there are those who want to pretend that nothing is wrong. Mags, the horror stories can't keep track. Pathetic. There's an editorial which appears in the New Today, the edition which hits the streets today. You'll hear it on here on Sunday morning. Check it out. Check it out. Peter Bishop says, so sad. But what more can I say? Life continues. Kind of pathetic, isn't it, Pedro? Yeah. Sharon says, it is not a case of taking money to light the stadium. Money was given as a grant to light the stadium, and that money should not be used, according to agreements regarding grants, for anything else. I say, should, because it seems that the money was used elsewhere. Ray should know better. Okay, Sharon. When Ray comes in here, when is it? On Tuesday morning. Check him out on that. Lori Bridgman says, good morning, George. You could not say it better, how stupid we are as a people. And the so-called ministers cannot see the vision. Fitzroy says, good morning to all. It's a beautiful day here in New York. Well, good for you, Fitzroy. We also have a beautiful day here in the Spice. Donna says, our PM and this government only care about photo ops. They have the money to stage the invitational, so all of them can go parade with the international athletes while our country is suffering. For example, the healthcare system, our teachers, and the public servants. Sharon is saying, John, you're sure right about that. And they are the first ones on the plane to the U.S. Sharon says, good morning, Kipling. I have been sending you Reiki energy. Hope you're doing better. Hey, Kipling's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. We're all praying for him. And Nixon Mitchell says, Grenada's Prime Minister Keith Mitchell is the best they had. Hold on. Nixon, try and wheel and come again. Make some sense out of this. I'd love to share it, but this is very incoherent. It says, Grenada Prime Minister Keith Mitchell is the best they had. Road development up, hospital care up, people live longer, more hospital treatment. Okay, all right. Peter Bishop says, Brian, settle down. We're not with you yet, Brian. See, Brian is Brian is smiling. Settle down. We'll get to you in just a wee bit. Peter Bishop says, money was given for the Coast Guard by the TNT government, and it was never used on the Coast Guard. So it will not be the first money given for one thing and used for another. Valid point, Pedro. By the way, speaking of Coast Guard, did you see where the Trinidad Coast Guard had to send, I think, 60 cylinders of oxygen to us this past week? Because we didn't have oxygen here at our hospital. Yeah. Donna Joseph says, Nixon is living blindly with his eyes wide shut. Okay. All right, folks, I'll tell you what. 15 minutes after the hour. Let us take our first little break here. Good morning to all of you, and we'll come on back with the National Report.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Grenelec is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
With fuel prices changing all the time, how do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
Grenelec, energizing our Grenada.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carriacou on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harvey Vale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis courts. And in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton Home. Welcome home.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
NIS to make changes to ensure requirements are met for pension payments. Stay with us, we'll have the details to this story and more in the National Report. With the news in detail for Thursday, 28th March 2019, I'm Delroy Louison. Changes will be made to the way things are done at the National Insurance Scheme to ensure that the organization is sustainable and able to meet its requirements for pension payments. Abigail McIntyre has the details.
The NIS contributions will increase by 2%, taking salary deductions from 9% to 11%, to be split between the employer and the employee. Added to that, the age of retirement will gradually increase to 65. This action became necessary after the recent actuarial review of the NIS. The review is done to analyze statistics and use them to calculate insurance risks and premiums. The review shows that if NIS continues on its current path, it can face bankruptcy in the future. The fact is, NIS is paying out more to beneficiaries than it is collecting. Added to that, Grenada has an aging population, meaning our people is growing old and retiring, but not much children are being made. This is important because the way Social Security pension is set up, it's our younger generations that pay the pensions of the older population. If this move isn't made now, then we run the risk of paying a 40% contribution in the future.
You will have no choice than facing an increase in retirement age like everywhere around the world. But you, because the situation is a little bit more urgent than other countries, this increase in retirement age should happen soon, in a sense. In some countries, the financial pressure is not as yours, so we can delay a little bit the increase in retirement age, but when there is a lot of pressure, as I said before, we have to act now to take this into account.
That was Georges Langis, actuary from BBL World Canada. Director of the National Insurance Scheme, Dorset Cromwell, further explains the current state of the NIS and admits something has to be done.
The issues still remain. Based on the reviews from the actuaries, that for the first time in 2016, contribution income was not sufficient to pay total expenditure. That was a reality, and it will continue. The reserve, of course, continues to grow. It will continue to grow, but the rate of growth of the reserve will become slower. And if nothing is done, in 2022, total income, investment income, contribution income will not be sufficient to pay total expenditure. And if we continue to find every possible reason still to do nothing, there will be no reserve in 2035, and contributors will have to pay, from 9%, will have to pay 22.5%. That is the reality, unfortunately.
The reality is Grenada contributes the lowest to NIS compared to any other country in the region. Whereas Grenada contributes 4% of GDP, other islands contribute 12 and 15%. In some countries in Europe, to ensure Social Security pension is sustainable, they have reduced the payout instead of adjusting the contributions. Grenada does not want to follow this trend.
Dominica will be 64 this year. There will be 64 and a half next year. There will be 65 in 2021. Their contribution rate is moving to 12.75%. That's the reality. From 2012 to 2019, they are increasing by 0.25% every year. From 2012 to 2019, the 0.25% was only attributed to employees. From 2020 to 2031, the 2.5%, 0.25% will be on employers. And in Dominica, they are saying, yes, we are increasing the retirement age, but at every stage we increase the retirement age, you can always take your pension early, you take an adjustment for taking it early. That's the reality in Dominica.
The recommendation from the actuary suggests that the retirement age be increased over a period of 16 years.
If there is a decision this year to increase the retirement age, it will stay at 2019, 2020, 2021. It will go to 2022 for the first time it will go to 61, for the first time in 2022. But when it is 61, you still have the option to take it at 60, albeit with a reduction.
Grenada is one of the few countries in the world that has a retirement age of 60. For the National Report, I am Abigail McIntyre.
Government is solidifying its plans to convert the Central Statistics Office into a National Statistics Institute that is independent and highly professional in the coordination of the data collection activities with national statistical systems. Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Dr. The Right Honourable Keith Mitchell, in meeting with the division recently, reiterated that since the correct data is critical to the decision-making process, the transition to an institute represents a win-win situation. The Central Statistical Office has already begun to put measures in place to increase the range and scope of statistical data that it produces, with the aim of expanding its reach to the public and private sectors locally, as well as regional and international organizations. A proposal for the establishment of the Statistics Institute is currently being reviewed and will be submitted to Cabinet, while further consultation with key stakeholders will get underway in due course. The establishment of the Institute will be in keeping with the United Nations Fundamental Principles of Official Statistics and CARICOM Code of Good Statistical Practices. The benefits will include a higher level of independence, improved timeliness, data quality and analysis, factors that are expected to inspire even greater public confidence in the data being produced. According to Dr. Mitchell, who is a statistician by profession, historically, not enough attention has been placed on the development of the statistics division. The Grenadian leader believes that a renewed focus on data-specific planning will direct government's attention to areas of national priorities, centralization of services to cater to the needs of the citizenry, employment creation, healthcare, and other essential service elements of government's fundamental responsibility to provide opportunities for its people, critical to national development. You're watching the National Report. Stay with us. We'll have more news when we return.
After 4 weeks of preliminary qualifiers, after 4 zonal meets, it all comes down to this one incredible day of exciting track and field action. It's the National Secondary School Games Grand Finals. The Eastern, Western, Northern, and Southern zones will face off. Kirani James Athletic Stadium, Friday, April 5th from 10 a.m. Excitement, tension, drama. The athletes will throw further, jump higher, and run faster. And inspirational halftime performances from Dash, Vaughn, and Mr. Killer. Witness poetry in motion, the fluidity of form and class. National Secondary School Games, the championship. Come feel the rhythm of the games.
We're back with the news. Grenadians still own the majority of real estate on the island. That's according to manager of real estate agency Century 21, Paula Latouche Keller. Century 21 and Netherlands Insurance joined the Communal Cooperative Credit Union in a residential mortgage finance symposium and product launch on Wednesday. The session was geared towards promoting the credit union's Dream Come Home mortgage at a 4.99% interest rate and initiating conversations between financial institutions and insurance companies on the benefits of home ownership. Latouche Keller gave the assurance that foreign investors do not own the majority of real estate on island. This, she said, goes against the popular belief that the market is being controlled by foreigners.
If you don't invest now, then I think you're making a big mistake. And I'm sure you, as I said before, you've seen and you're watching all the development that is going on in Grenada. Grenada is on the rise. Grenada is being looked at. Things are happening in Grenada. And don't believe Grenada is on the rise because of foreigners. Grenada is on the rise because of you who's sitting here. The small investments you make on a daily basis, buying the small lot of land, the huge house, whatever you choose to buy, you're making that impact. And I'm saying that to you because I think a lot of people have the misconception that foreigners are buying up Grenada and they own most of the real estate. And I'm here to say that's a lie, okay? Most of the real estate are still owned by us. So you should be very proud of yourself as Grenadians.
Manager of the Communal Credit Union, Justino Jacob, stressed the importance of self-actualization. He said owning a house is a major accomplishment.
Home ownership also facilitates the achievement of the next level needs of love and belonging, a true sense of family, the true essence of family. We at the Communal are cognizant of these essential needs, and we are proud of our commitment to assist our members achieve self-actualization. We are always member-focused, and we are willing to be part of each member's life journey. We beckon all to come home to the Communal for the realization of your dreams.
And for our final story in today's National Report, the beginning of improvement in Bolong and the improvement of the well-being of employees. That is how Agriculture Minister, the Honourable Yolande Bain Hosford, has described opening of shared facilities in the area. Its ceremony was held on Wednesday.
I'm delighted to see that we have started the changes here. I mean, there is much more to be done. I said all these derelict buildings, we should really upgrade them and give them purpose, because I know that they're all leaking and they're not being utilized as they should. But this is a start. Okay, this is a start. You have a shelter here where you can recreate, sit down and maybe have your meal, your lunch, and chat a little before you go back on the job, and then you have toilet facility. I understood that productivity is very high here. You always meet your quota, and that is, we need to applaud you for that, because if you go to some of the different stations, you always have some shortcomings or something. And so we really, really need to applaud you for doing an excellent job under those conditions.
Chief Agricultural Officer Daniel Lewis says the ministry has more plans in store for the sector. He also recognized the workers of Bolang Nursery for their labor.
And I did indicate that the ministry would really endeavor to see to what extent we could have provided better service. And I know that has been a long outstanding commitment that has not been met. I know since the minister came in, the Minister for Agriculture, she did pay a visit here, and she always, in every meeting we have had, every management meeting, she always lamented the fact that we have to do better as far as Bolang facilities are concerned. So today it's like a dream come true. And the whole question, but why should we be so concerned about having good facilities? Because clearly, it affords much more dignity and comfort for the workers. And I want to implore upon you to take good care of the facility and continue to be very, very productive. I know there is need for some further upgrade of this facility, and as much as possible, providing the availability of funds, the ministry will endeavor to, improve the facility, making sure that you are working in an environment that is comfortable and highly dignified.
That story has brought us to the end of the National Report for Thursday, 28th March 2019. Now for a recap of the headline. NIS to make changes to ensure requirements are met for pension payments. On behalf of the entire news team, management and staff of the Government Information Service, thank you for joining us. I'm Delroy Lozar.
Conveniently located in the Grand Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store.
Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair Grenadans will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep.
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our Speyside.
GRENLEC, energizing our Grenada.
Alrighty, folks, it's now 25 minutes away from 10 o'clock. Time to say good morning to Mr. Pitt. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm great, George. Good morning to you and your viewers and listeners. I hope I'm not too close to the camera, George.
Well, you're still kind of close to the camera, but we can do. If you just
maybe I just have a big face, George.
Well, I wasn't going to bring that up, but since you
did, you see, it starts kind of up here, you know.
Yes. We're all getting to that point in life, Brian.
Yeah,
hey, man,
both of
what's
us.
up
George.
your sleeve this morning?
I didn't hear that.
What do you have up your sleeve this morning?
George, a couple of things. I looked at your interview with Mr. Lane.
Ouch.
And I have a couple of comments, George.
Yes, sir.
What struck me about that interview? And I also read an article by Mr. Fitzroy Louison.
Yes, sir.
That was posted on your website.
Yes, sir.
And I note that around this time of year, George, revolutionaries get us all hyped up. I don't think Mr. Louison would have written that article if Mr. Lane did not appear on your program. And he has a lot of stuff to vent. And it reminded me that sometime after the 19th of October 1983, as an executive member of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce, we were summoned to Butler House to a meeting that were to explain that the people who died in the fort died in crossfire. Have you ever heard that, George?
No.
The people who died at the fort died in crossfire.
Okay.
And we were supposed to communicate that to the regional organization. I think they were meeting with almost every organization. And that was the message, to put out there that these people died in the fort from crossfire. But George, Mr. Lane said something that jumped out at me, and I'm going to talk about that this morning. That the law lords in what he called number 3, issue number 3, why his thing was rejected, said words to the effect that to admit someone with a criminal conviction will erode the public confidence in the profession or the legal system. Now think about that for a moment, George. I think the law lords were sending us a message that they are there not only to say who is right or who is wrong, but to protect the profession. And I know, George, that the government of Grenada withdrew its appearance in this matter. And I asked myself the question, why did they not find it necessary to protect the profession by public perception? And, you know, I have a mentor, George, who is a retired judge. And through the whole process of the CCJ, of us joining the CCJ, he kept pounding in my head, Brian, you know, judges at these final courts are very, very important. And if I were you, I'd vote yes. And I resisted that because he said exactly this, that judges are there to protect the reputation of the judicial system and the profession. George, I wanted to raise that this morning because I think of all the 3 items that this matter, that the learned law lords rejected, this was the most important one. What do you think, George?
Pardon me?
What do you think?
I think you're right, and I thank you for bringing that up. Go ahead.
George, this issue with healthcare is a very serious issue. And I am reading, I read Ray Roberts' input on this matter with Joe.
Yeah.
I have a friend, George, who lost his wife recently. She was diabetic and she went to the hospital and apparently was released from the hospital after treating her with insulin. She went home and passed away. And, you know, a lot of us keep saying that it will not happen to us.
Yeah.
We don't have any empathy for those people who have suffered. Some of the enablers believe they can catch a plane and fly to another country if something goes wrong with them, with their health.
Yeah.
But the situation in the hospital, George, is dire.
It is.
And it's about time that all private and public institutions take this as a priority in their conversation with the powers that be. And I'm talking about private sector organizations, trade unions, because it is a serious matter that is getting worse by the day. And we are losing our loved ones and our dear friends with situations that would normally be corrected by proper care and a better facility and professionals in the hospital. I sympathize with the nurses because they're working under duress. They're working under conditions that I don't believe any healthcare worker will put up with in any other part of the world, George.
You know, Brian, one, I hope you do get a chance to read the editorial which appears in today's edition of the New Today, because it also deals with the healthcare system. And two, you just made a suggestion that it's time that we all got together and did something about this. What can we do, Brian? I mean, people have been bitching about the healthcare system now for God knows how long. But nobody's listening. I mean, you're in government, so you do what you see as a priority, and hell with what we see as priorities. What can we do, Brian?
Organizations have to take this thing seriously, George. We have private sector organizations, we have trade union organizations, there are teachers. The whole society is affected by the healthcare situation on the island, and they are the ones who should come together and let their voices be heard. That's the only way it's going to change. Individually, we spin a top in mud.
Brian, people have been talking. Look at what you're doing right now. You're talking. Do you think anybody's listening to you?
These organizations are not doing what they're supposed to do, George. They don't have a social conscience.
Okay.
As I mentioned not too long ago, they are enablers.
Supposedly.
Whether they like it or not.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
But they're not. Margaret says on Facebook, she says, Brian, by that definition, a whole lot of them lawyers in the Caribbean, and judges too, shouldn't be there.
You know, and he has a point. My mentor that I speak of from time to time, George, tells me that some of the legal practices in the Caribbean would lawyers would be disbarred if they existed in a developed country for some of the practices that exist in this region. And it is good that the Privy Council, the law lords, that is the place that we want to leave, can point out to us that this is important. This learned profession is still learned, and that we should do all in our power to protect it. George, you know, I was thinking this morning that Mr. Lane, if he has such a brilliant legal mind, there's a question about the legality of the traffic wardens, George, issuing tickets. Maybe some community work would not hurt, Mr. Lane. If somebody, and George, maybe this is something that we should be discussing at some point on this show, does the traffic wardens have a legal right to be issuing tickets? You know, I passed this by a couple of lawyers recently, and they were of varying opinion. They didn't think so. Now, so if the ordinary Grenadian citizen, let's take our favorite people, the bus drivers, get a ticket, they will have to pay a lawyer to go to court And if it's illegal, they will find out it's illegal after they pay the lawyer and expense themselves. Maybe this is a task that the Bar Association can take up, or some of your learned friends in the legal profession, George.
hint, yeah, okay. Couldn't agree with you more. You know how many people have been calling on the GBA to be more proactive? But it seems
yes,
like
I think these organizations need to be more proactive. They need to have a social conscience, George. And you know, there's another matter, George, about claims.
Hold on.
Against the government. Go ahead, sorry.
Hold on. Just before you move on to claims, I have another comment here from Margaret. Margaret says, Brian, I get that Grenada doesn't have the resources to provide health care in a scale and quality found in the United States and other developed countries. But a lot of what takes place in the hospital is not a resources issue, but a management issue and a careless and reckless disregard for patient care. Agreed?
Yes, management is an issue. But George, the conditions under which the practitioners have to work. I saw a picture on Facebook not too long ago where somebody took a picture of a toilet in the hospital.
Yeah.
That looked terrible. So all Margaret has to do on her next visit to Grenada is go walk through the hospital. You know, and so the conditions are there. If you go in there sick, George, you will get sicker, if there's such a word.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not just a management problem. The whole healthcare system need to be revamped. And by the way, George, we are losing good nurses every day because there's a demand for good nurses all over the world. So if they can travel and they're guaranteed a certain amount of income and they can send some money back home, remit to their families, they will probably go.
Peter Bishop says, good question, Brian. Read the traffic wardens. You know, I got a lecture the other day from a bus driver. He wanted me to do something about the fact that, like you say, these wardens are authorized to issue tickets. You know?
Well, I don't know if they are authorized. They have a book and they're writing a ticket. And I'm told that they are telling the people who they issue these tickets to that the police will check it out. Well, what does that mean?
The police will check it out.
Yes. So imagine what they're doing is making a citizen's arrest, if that is what they're doing, or a citizen can write a ticket, and then the police will support that citizen's ticket, will saying that citizen was evidence or a witness. Sorry,
okay.
That citizen, the marshal, was a witness to you committing a crime.
You know, Brian, a few weeks ago, there were some cops on the street with these wardens, you know, trying to show them the ropes and briefing them. And I felt hopeful, you know, the police are gonna have some help. But now that these kids are out on their own, you walk around St. George's by the market there, by Foodland, Brighton and Midas, and you see some of these kids standing around, and it's like, you know, they're in another world. It's like they're not sure what they're supposed to do or not do. And then the ones who are directing traffic, I see the standard thing where, you know, you're directing traffic and your hand has to go like this. You know, it's something that's been taught. It's traditional. You know what I'm talking about?
You know what that reminds me of, George? It's a slogan of many elections ago. It's what you want, what you don't get. Because what it tells me, George, is that we have created something to give some people jobs. Whether or not that's a sustainable job, I don't know. Whether or not from the position of warden, some of these guys can become policemen, could be a good thing. But is it a situation where we are just trying to find something for young people to do?
Yeah.
That might not be sustainable. That, where are they going with this?
Yeah. Fitzroy Adams says, Brian, some people are seeing that the health care is improving. Just a few minutes ago, someone mentioned health care is up under KCM.
George.
Take a deep breath, Brian.
Yes, I'll take a very deep breath. It reminded me also of somebody mentioned about it. It's not a matter of money. It's a matter of management. I think Margaret said something like that. We are going to give Liat $1 million. And I'm going to go back to a statement that was made in the last election. If the fiscal space allows. So the fiscal space conveniently allows when there's a political decision. You remember that statement, George? If the fiscal space allows, and at the time we wondered, what does that mean? If the fiscal space allows. So there is a problem in the hospital, George. All you have to do is go visit. Don't listen to the news. Go visit. If we listen to the news, we'll say that Grenada is the #1 economy in the Caribbean. George,
yeah.
And I'm going to get emotional. That is not the word on the street. That is not the word for a young person who cannot rent an apartment in town. That is not for a young person who can't buy a house, even though I listened to Century 21 just now. I challenged that with the statistics. They have to show me some statistics. But people are catching their royal to make two ends meet. So you can't tell them that Grenada is the #1 economy in the Caribbean when they're not feeling it. George.
Peter Bishop says, I note the issue with the GUT and the government SBA. My solution is that the government appoint some SBA wardens to solve the issue. Pedro, you brought a chuckle out of Brian.
Well, something, George. There are a lot of young people with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 subjects in Grenada who either waiting for scholarship or waiting for an opportunity to travel to advance themselves. Maybe that could be a good part-time job. Some of these kids might be proficient in some of these areas that the SBA is covering. I think Mr. Bishop might have a very good point.
Yeah. Okay, Brian.
But George, you see where this comes from? This comes from our ability. We don't recognize the importance of teachers. Although, as I mentioned before, we all can remember a favorite teacher of ours who influenced our lives. We are not recognizing the importance of this person who spends most of the day with our kids, who are the ones who form our kids' character, for crying out loud. And we treat them like dirt. Yeah. And so we brought this upon ourselves, George. All for what? All to prove that you can do it? Nonsense.
Yeah, good point. Dennis Charles says, healthcare has declined in recent years. Nurses are leaving for greener pastures. It doesn't look good. And Margaret says to you, Brian, oh, Brian, dear, I've been dealing with the hospital for the past year, so I know what it looks like. My most recent encounter was just a couple of weeks ago, when, among other atrocities, my relative's surgery was pushed aside so that surgery on 2 private patients could take place.
And George, Margaret has a point, because I understand that there are surgeons who are doing surgery at the hospital and they are charging their clients to use the facility. And this is a topic that has been in discussion for a few years now.
Absolutely.
And so yes, Margaret has a point in terms of management. But yes, management is important, but you have to manage something efficiently, and you have to have a good a place that somebody want to take the job. First of all, I mean, the hospital has to be a functioning facility for a good manager to take that job if he's well paid. Otherwise, you probably won't get a good manager.
Yeah. Pathetic. Laurie Bridgman says, Brian, sad to say, Mr. Lane and others are not telling the truth about how the cabinet ministers were murdered. Try interviewing one by one. You'll see it does not add up, based on what I know.
George, it brings me to this point. If I'm not mistaken, the sentence of the 17 was death. The court decided that they should be executed. I believe it was the Braffett administration, and I believe that Joan Purcell had something to do with this. The death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. That, to me, is enough to say, guys, you know, enjoy the rest of your life because you'll be given a reprieve. I note the disdain that Mr. Lane took the question from, I believe it was Edwin, what's his name? Anyway, there was a question about the bodies that Mr. Lane dispensed by saying, how dare you ask me such a ridiculous question because the Americans took the bodies away. Now, they were in charge of the bodies for over 6 days. So I think the questioner implied that what was the condition of the bodies when the Americans took it? Nobody has addressed that, you know, George. The thing happened on the 19th. The Americans came in on the 25th. They were in charge and control of those bodies for that period of time. The bodies were burning in the ground. What do they know about the conditions of the bodies? So, from time to time when I listen to these guys, George, I feel that they are saying that we disturbed a palace coup, and without this intervention, they would have solved their problem, because those people who were executed did not agree with the Central Committee's decision that they should be judged. Yeah. And I don't believe they're wrong. Up to today, I don't think they believe they're wrong. They're sorry, but I don't think they believe they're wrong. George.
Mr. Pitt, feel a little bit better now, sir? Now that you got it off your chest?
Well, no, there's a lot more things in Grenada chest, you know, George. You know, I want to end on a lighter note, George. We got a new president of CWI, Cricket West Indies.
Cricket West Indies, yeah.
And I applaud that move. I hope that Ricky Skerritt, whom I know personally, I believe he will be a good president. And I hope that Ricky Skerritt and his administration can do one important thing. They can decide to make space for people to be patriotic and earn a living at the same time. We had a discussion going on the camera that patriotism was more important than paying your mortgage and feeding your family. So that if a guy decided to go to the IPL and play cricket to make some money, he was considered a bad person.
Yeah.
That must stop, George, and we must provide an atmosphere for these kids to be not only be patriotic, but to earn a living and look after their families.
We're going to keep an eye on Mr. Skerritt, and since you know this gentleman so well, I'm hoping that one of these days you'll be able to persuade him to put in an appearance here. I'll actually let you do the interview, sir. How about that?
I'm sure he'll be in Grenada soon.
Okay, great. That would be nice. Thanks a lot, Brian. You know, there are a couple of things I also wanted to chat with you about this morning, about claims. And I think you were going in that direction a little while ago, but I distracted you. How do
just a quick comment on claims, because I don't know if you missed this. You missed this, George. But there was a minister of government, I think it was Oliver Joseph, did mention a few weeks ago that they were receiving a grant from somewhere, and that this grant would be used to pay judgment claims. Am I right, George? Was there a report from Oliver Joseph?
I don't recall that.
I think you better search your archive. I think he said that they were getting a grant from somewhere, and that grant will be used to pay judgment claims against the government of Grenada. But George, I go back to judgment number 16. Judgment number 16 was a judgment handed down by the Privy Council in a Gary matter that Derek Knight got many moons ago. The deceased Derek Knight, may his soul rest in peace. And basically what that judgment said was that the Minister of Finance was responsible for paying judgment claims at a reasonable period of time, you know. And if I'm not mistaken, you might remember, George, or some of our listeners, Derek Knight at the time posted in the newspaper the property of the then Minister of Finance so that he can hurry up the payment, and I believe he got paid the Gary property shortly after that. Check it out, George.
Okay, sir. I will. Lincoln Roberts says here, Brian, if there's a law authorizing a group of people to issue tickets, then it's legal. In Florida, tickets were sent out to people who violated a traffic law by a company that was managing the traffic cameras. They were not allowed by law to issue tickets. Therefore, all who paid the tickets had to be refunded.
The inconvenience of that, George, tells me that somebody should check it out now, whether or not, if it's not legal, then legalize it. If it is legal, then power to that.
And finally, John says West Indies cricketers must now be selected on their ability, not who they are related to.
Hip, hip, hip. Hooray. And I believe, George, that in the West Indies right now, we have enough young talent. You know, it's interesting. The IPL is on now, George, and some of the West Indians performing there are getting the loudest applause, you know, and getting the most results for their teams. So if we put the right team on the field, George, there's nobody to beat us.
All right. Maybe there's hope. Maybe.
There is hope.
Okay. Brian, finally. I see that Grenada is the only island that has so far come up with its promise to Liat. You know, we've given them $1 million. The other islands haven't. Do you think they will?
George, our fiscal space allows.
Okay. So the other fiscal spaces do not allow.
Maybe they don't allow.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Good to see you, bro.
Good to see you, George. Have a nice day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carriacou on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harvey Vale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis court. And in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton Home. Welcome home.
Alrighty, folks, just about time to pull the curtain down on this Friday morning. As we always do every day, parting word from the Holy Scriptures, Philippians 4, verses 4 to 7 says, "Rejoice in the Lord always." I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Philippians 4, verses 4 to 7. On that note, Pilgrims, Georgie Porgy is going to hightail it out of here. Thank you very much. And hey, join us on Sunday morning for the next edition of Sundays with George Grant. Going to be another scorcher, I hope. I don't know if we could top the last couple of Sundays, but we're going to try. And of course, see you next Monday morning for the next edition of Gudday Grenada. God bless you.